So I took the liberty this morning of reading an article that I thought I would share with you, and it's extremely important. So if you can be patient and have a listening ear, I know sometimes the articles are lengthy, but this article is very, very important because it is about what is going on in the current time, and it is really um, sad, but it's true and it is a defining moment, and it is what most people that are in regular communities, household family communities, might be experiencing in the very soon to be future. And some have already started experiencing this. And so the U.S. is facing an eviction tsunami. So we must cancel the rent before it's too late. So this is out of the Guardian, and it says that Houston's rental aid fund was empty 90 minutes after it opened. In Chicago, 80,000 renters applied for 2,000 relief grants. And so it says forgive our rent. And so if you are in the local communities and you've seen these signs or you've heard of these programs called Forgive the Rent or this movement that has been going around the country, it has all to do with what's going on in our current U.S. So it's already started. A majority of U.S. states have resumed evictions or are allowing them despite the worsening pandemic. So as many as 40 million people nationwide face eviction due to inability to pay rent. So in comparison, in 2008 foreclosure crisis saw the loss of 10 million homes. Now millions of seniors, people with disabilities, parents, and children are at risk of homelessness. Eviction preys disproportionately in many places overwhelmingly on black women and people of color, deepening savage racial inequalities. So it's not too late to stop this unprecedented eviction tsunami from happening and repair the damage, but we must act boldly. The tsunami is no accident. It is a result of landlords' lobbying and lawmakers' decisions. Even before the pandemic, 20.5 million households were struggling to pay their rent. So on May Day, thousands of renters across the country launched a protest demanding the government to cancel the rents. So instead, Congress has spent trillions bailing out largest corporations, including private equity landlords who profited exorbitantly from the pain of the foreclosure crisis and its aftermath. Now landlords have ramped up eviction filings in anticipation of expiring eviction moratoriums, while tenants have yet to receive unemployment benefits they've been approved for. So, from New Orleans, Kansas City, Los Angeles, and New York, renters are shutting down eviction courts, blockading evictions, and fighting to extend eviction moratoriums. They're meeting their needs for shelter and creating stopgaps against homelessness where decision makers have failed. But we need more than stopgaps that defer displacement to a later date. Canceling rent and mortgage payments is the most effective solution to the mounting debt and mass displacement threatening working class communities, communities of color, and low income households during and after COVID-19 pandemic. This means passing laws that eliminate the obligation to pay rent, late fees, missed payments accrued during the pandemic. Concurrently, mortgage debt must be forgiven or granted forbearance. Additional relief should prioritize at-risk landlords and providers of permanently affordable housing, while large corporate landlords should be taxed to help foot the bill. Canceling rent and mortgage payments acts immediately to match the true scope of the problem. We must protect renters universally by canceling rents for all renters, regardless of income, employment, or immigration status. This eliminates application proofs of eligibility and waits for relief. By protecting all renters, we swiftly aid the most marginalized among them. Universal rent cancellation promotes race, gender, and economic justice because of who renters are, mostly working class, low income, disproportionately people of color. In contrast, requiring renters to apply for assistance means that huge swaths of people fall through the cracks. Rental assistance funds have reached only a tiny fraction of the millions who are struggling. Houston ran out of its $15 million rental assistance funds in 90 minutes after applications had opened. Los Angeles proposed a $100 million relief fund that would cover less than 14% of those on the brink of eviction. And in Chicago, more than 80,000 renters applied for just 2,000 available relief grants. The administration of rent relief is excluding undocumented people, those who are unbanked or informally employed, rural households, and anyone who faces barriers navigating the application system. Rent relief fund alone cannot resolve the renter crisis aggravated by the pandemic, and they don't fix the fundamental causes behind our lack of housing affordability. Decades of rampant real estate speculation and increased reliance on for-profit developers to produce housing alongside of drastic cuts to the public and non-profit production of housing that is permanently affordable. Since 2000, the proportion of newly built units at the luxury inn has more than doubled, while those renting for under $850 a month have. To truly address the housing crisis, we must limit rent and massively fund social housing that is permanently affordable. So after the foreclosure crises, the largest private equity landlords scooped up foreclosed homes. So government policies enabled and rewarded these bad actors. So in 2020, they're again poised to acquire distressed properties in mass. So we can stop this. Rather than subsidizing corporate landlords and banks that have stripped wealth from the communities, we must cut them loose. So first, by pairing rent cancellation with mortgage debt cancellation, we can stabilize whole communities, renters, homeowners, small landlords too. Additional relief can prioritize needy landlords who maintain affordable rents and comply with tenant protections. Public funds should selectively subsidize socially responsible landlords. Second, strong eviction moratoriums halting every aspect of all eviction processes except in cases of imminent threat to health and safety must be enacted and extended. Failing to pay rent during a pandemic must be permanently eliminated as a basis for eviction. As San Francisco has done and California legislators are in the process of doing with an AB 1436 is what it's called. Finally, we must redirect copious public resources towards creating social housing. After the foreclosure crisis, the Federal Housing Administration sold 98% of the foreclosed properties to Wall Street landlords at bargain rates. This time, we must shift ownership from for-profit corporations to nonprofit community control, including permanently affordable resident cooperatives, community land trust, and public housing. We must house the unhoused rather than criminalizing homelessness. And we must limit large corporate acquisitions, whether through outright prohibition, eminent domain, or laws granting public entities, nonprofits, and tenants the first right of purchase. This broader vision is what housing justice organization means when they demand cancel the rent, reclaim our homes. Along such lines, the Minnesota Congresswoman Ainha Omar visionary federal bill, which is H.R. 6515. So I may not have pronounced her name correctly, but she seeks to build a more just housing system by pairing rent and mortgage cancellation with an acquisition fund to create social housing. New York and Illinois legislators have introduced bills to cancel the rent and mortgages statewide. Momentum continues to build. Affordable housing providers like Jane Place in New Orleans, Push Buffalo in New York have voluntarily canceled their tenants' rents. But we need government action to cancel rent mortgages systematically, giving these Good Samaritans relief for lost rental income while leveling the playing field against the corporate landlord giants. Large corporate landlords sit on more than $470 billion of tax breaks, including from the COVID-19 stimulus packages. They must give back the funding relief and social housing. It all starts, though, with giving low-income communities of color a fighting chance at staying in their homes. We must listen to those most affected. It's past time to make the practical and transformative demand for rent and mortgage cancellation a reality. This is Lupe Arreola is an executive director of Tenants Together in California, a statewide coalition of tenant organizations and an anchor organization of the National Homes for All campaign and the Right to the City Alliance. Amee Chu, PhD, is a Mellon ACLS Public Fellow who works in housing policy. Together, they have collaborated with national housing justice organizations on ourhomesourhealth.org. And so I thought I would bring this to your attention. If you want this article and you want to read it and you want to contact these people, the U.S. is facing an eviction tsunami. We must cancel the rent before it's too late. I felt this was important because this is what's happening in our current time. So I know there were rent relief programs, but not everybody was able to participate in them for whatever the reason, and this article pretty much explained it. And so despite what our president has said that he would make protections, there are some things that aren't protected and some people that aren't protected, and there's limited protections in some states. So this article, I felt that it was important, so I'm gonna let this video go. And so be safe out there, be aware that this thing is happening. It's already started in most states, and some people are being evicted. Thanks for listening.